Imagine for a second that you're at this massive international festival.
Okay.
The weather's beautiful, the music is just blasting, and you are totally surrounded by people from all over the world.
Sounds great.
Right. You're sharing hot tea, you're trading uniform patches, taking selfies on this big glass skywalk, and just laughing with complete strangers.
Yeah.
It feels like this ultimate celebration of, global unity. But then just a few days later,
The whole thing flips.
completely upside down, you are suddenly fighting for your life in the dark, burning waters of the Indian Ocean, and the very people you were just laughing with.
Are the ones hunting you.
Exactly.
It is just a staggering whiplash, going from this really vibrant celebration of peace to the brutal, chaotic reality of war, literally in the blink of an eye.
And that surreal, frankly terrifying scenario is exactly what we're plunging into today.
Right.
Because for this deep dive, we are unpacking excerpts from a really gripping piece of source material. It's a text called mybook-print.pdf by Cheeto Pepler.
It's quite a read.
Oh, it really is. It paints this incredibly vivid, high-stakes picture of modern naval warfare and diplomacy.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to explore that razor-thin line between maritime diplomacy and devastating conflict. And we really want to understand how the individuals caught in the middle experience this sudden violent shift.
Because the ocean isn't just empty space, right?
Yeah.
As we'll see throughout this text, it's a highly contested arena. Global politics play out there in real time, often with incredibly high stakes for the individual sailors involved.
Definitely. But real quick, before we go any further, I do need to share something important with you listening.
Yeah, good point.
Because our source material today covers a fictionalized military conflict involving the United States and Iran, we want to make it absolutely clear to you that we're not taking sides.
Right.
We are simply here to impartially report on the narrative and the ideas exactly as they are presented in this text.
Exactly. Our focus is entirely on the strategic and the human elements of the story, as Pepler's laid them out. We're just examining the mechanics of how these geopolitical tectonic plates shift.
Right. So let's just set the scene. The text starts us off in early 2026 at this massive gathering in India. And the scale described here is it's wild.
It really is. We're in Visakhapatnam, which is often called Vizag for short, on the east coast of India.
Okay.
And the Bay of Bengal is absolutely packed. You've got over 50 warships from more than 70 nations gathered for Milan 2026.
No.
Yeah, it's the largest multinational naval gathering in the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
The whole thing is designed as this massive show of maritime diplomacy.
And slicing right through this crowded harbor is an Iranian ship, the Iris Dena.
Right.
The text notes that this ship is there to represent Tehran's push for, quote, blue water relevance far beyond the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean, like in naval terms?
It's a crucial distinction. A brown water navy is mostly focused on coastal defense, patrolling local rivers, shorelines, things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But pushing for blue water relevance means you're trying to build a force capable of operating across the deep, open oceans of the world.
Ah, got it.
It's all about projecting power globally, far away from your home ports. And leading this push on the Dena is Commander Abu Zarzari. He's this battle-hardened officer who knows exactly how fragile this whole diplomatic setup really is.
Yeah, and the text mentions something super interesting about that setup. The Americans were supposed to be part of this giant photo op in the water, but they changed their plans.
What's fascinating here is the intelligence game happening right above their heads.
Right.
See, the U.S. Navy was originally scheduled to send an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the USS Pinckney, to this exercise.
Okay.
But they canceled that deployment at the last minute, citing emergent reasons. And instead, they sent a P-8A Poseidon.
Which is an airplane.
Exactly. A maritime patrol aircraft from Patrol Squadron 4. And they just parked it at the local Indian Air Base.
Wait, why send a single plane to a massive gathering of naval ships? That feels like, I don't know, showing up to a car show on a bicycle.
Because that plane is a pure intelligence-gathering predator.
Oh.
And Commander Zari knows exactly what it's doing. As soon as the Dena leaves the harbor, that P-8 will be loitering invisibly at 30,000 feet.
Just watching them?
More than watching. It will be vacuuming up data, recording the Dena's radar pulse frequencies, mapping its communication bursts, and cataloging the unique, rhythmic thrum of its propellers.
Oh, wow.
It is a masterclass in how modern navies use diplomacy as a cover for surveillance. Everyone is smiling at the party, but everyone is also taking meticulous notes on how to kill each other later.
Man, that tension is just so palpable, especially during that first officer's reception at the Naval Club overlooking the harbor.
Yeah,
You have this beautiful terrace, string lights, a gentle sea breeze. Officers from all over the world are just mingling, and the Indian hosts are acting as these perfect middlemen.
they are.
There's this vivid moment the text gives us where an Indian liaison officer, Lieutenant Arjun Mehta, offers Commander Zari a glass of chilled pomegranate juice.
Right.
And the description is so eerie. Under the amber lights, the juice looks exactly like arterial blood.
It's a brilliant, really unsettling detail that grounds the whole scene. Zari accepts the drink, but he isn't seduced by all the pageantry.
No, not at all.
He notes the deep irony of the situation. India is hosting the Americans at the airbase and the Iranians at the pier.
Yeah.
And when Lieutenant Mehta toasts to safety in calm seas, Zari replies that calm seas sometimes hide trouble, and that peace is the most fragile thing in this harbor.
Okay, let's unpack this pageantry because the next day is the International Fleet Review, and my mind was just totally boggled trying to understand how you even park that many ships.
The logistics involved are staggering. 52 massive warships are ordered to drop anchor in a perfectly spaced grid 22 kilometers offshore.
That's insane.
And they have to maintain exactly 500 to 1,000 meters of spacing between these huge steel vessels.
Right.
During the briefing, a Philippine Navy captain jokes, and if someone drifts, the Indian operations officer just shrugs and replies, then everyone drifts.
It sounds like a joke, but the text makes it clear that's the absolute truth of naval seamanship. If one person messes up, it's a multi-million-dollar disaster.
Exactly.
But what really caught my eye was where they parked the Iranian ship.
Yes. The diplomatic geometry of that formation is probably the most revealing detail of the entire review.
Yeah.
Commander Zari explains this to one of his junior officers, Lieutenant Ali Rahmani. The Iranian frigate isn't at the front, and it isn't at the back. It's placed squarely in the middle of a column, right between an Indian destroyer and a Japanese frigate.
And Zari tells his officer, no alliances, just navies.
It is a highly intentional arrangement by the Indian hosts. By mixing the countries together and breaking up traditional alliances, they enforce a visual narrative of global unity.
That makes sense.
For that one day, the friction of a fracturing world is replaced by the rigid, beautiful geometry of maritime tradition.
And the culmination of all that is when the reviewing authority sails through the fleet. The text mentions it's the Indian president on a sleek patrol vessel, and just the visual of thousands of sailors saluting at once is incredible.
That would be Indian President Drupadi Murmu aboard the INS Sumita.
Right.
As she passes, it creates this ocean of synchronized white gloves. But for the senior Iranian officer present, Rear Admiral Shahram Irani, it triggers really dark memory.
Yeah.
He looks at this peaceful armada and remembers Operation Praying Mantis in 1988.
What's the context there? Why does that specific event stick out to him?
In 1988, during the Iran-Iraq War, the U.S. Navy launched Operation Praying Mantis. It was a massive retaliation against Iranian forces in the Persian Gulf.
Okay.
During that operation, the U.S. destroyed several Iranian ships and platforms. So when Admiral Irani looks out at 52 warships, his muscle memory kicks in.
Right. He can't help it.
He remarks to Zari that he has seen fleets before, but they were preparing for battle, not gathered for peace. The sea remembers these things, and so do the commanders.
That history really casts a huge shadow over what happens next. Because after the rigid discipline of the fleet review, the sailors get shore leave in Vizag. They get to be tourists.
Yeah, brief break.
The text follows these Iranian sailors, including petty officers Reza Farhadi and Amir Haddadi, just exploring the city. They visit Kailasagiri Hill and stand beneath these towering 40-foot statues of the Hindu deities Shiva and Parvati. They are experiencing a culture completely different from their own.
But the narrative doesn't let you forget the reality of their profession for very long.
No, it doesn't.
There's this deeply unsettling foreshadowing moment when those same Iranian sailors visit Vizag's submarine museum.
Oh man, this part.
It's an actual decommissioned sub permanently resting on the shoreline. They go inside, navigating the cramped compartments, and they end up peering into the forward heavyweight torpedo tubes.
And they're just marveling at the technology, right? Asking the tour guide how it works, joking about the cramped bunks.
They are literally running their hands along the metal rims of these tubes, talking about how a submarine can strike from the deep without ever being seen.
Wow.
It's a chilling scene because you, reading the text, know exactly what is waiting for them in the dark waters of the Indian Ocean. They are physically touching the instrument of their impending doom, completely unaware.
The irony is so heavy, and it overflows during the festival at Milan Village.
Yeah.
There's a massive waterfront party set up by the Indian Navy. There's music, dancing, street vendors selling hot biryani and spiced fish. And our Iranian sailors, Reza and Amir, strike up a fast friendship with a Sri Lankan petty officer named Nalin Pereira. Sometimes the text refers to him as Nimal, but it's the same guy.
Right.
They share hot tea, and Pereira promises that if they ever come to Colombo, he'll show them the best food in the city.
It really highlights the shared, ordinary humanity of these men. The sea has its own language, and underneath the flags and the geopolitics, these are just young men far from home looking for connection.
One of my absolute favorite details was an Iranian sailor buying a brand new black market iPhone from a street vendor.
Yes.
His buddies are giving him a hard time, asking how he's going to use the App Store back in Iran with all the government internet filters.
Right.
And he just grins and says, I know a good VPN.
It's great.
It's such a humanizing moment. They aren't faceless military cogs. They're regular guys buying phones and taking group selfies.
But that brief window of normalcy slams shut very quickly.
Oh, instantly. Think about how jarring that departure must have been. They leave Vizag on February 26th, waving goodbye to students they just met on the promenade. But the second they hit open water, the text reveals this massive mechanical crisis brewing below decks.
Right. One of the Dena's gas turbine engines begins behaving erratically. And this is where global politics directly impacts the ship's hardware.
How so?
Because of international sanctions against Iran, their Navy struggles to obtain basic spare parts. An issue that a Western Navy might fix in a few days requires extreme improvisation and caution for them. So Commander Zari is forced to make a very difficult tactical decision. He limits the ship's speed to a crawling 7 or 8 knots for the entire 1,200 nautical mile journey across the Bay of Bengal towards Sri Lanka.
Can you put 7 knots into perspective for us? How slow is that out on the open ocean?
It's essentially creeping. A modern frigate can usually push past 30 knots if it needs to move quickly.
Okay.
At 7 knots, you're barely making a wake. In naval terms, a slow ship is a dead ship.
Wow.
Zari tells his officers that patience is more useful than speed. He's aiming to protect the troubled turbine, but it leaves them highly exposed.
And then the bottom just drops out.
Yeah.
The Dena is a few days into its voyage when an encrypted message starts printing in the communications room. The sailors read it, and their blood runs cold. Airstrikes have hit Iran. An IRGC naval base in Manab has been targeted. War has officially broken out.
For context, the IRGC stands for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It is a major, powerful branch of the Iranian armed forces.
Right.
A direct strike on an IRGC base isn't a minor border skirmish. It is a massive, unmistakable escalation.
Yeah.
This is the nightmare scenario for Commander Zari. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Dena is caught in what we can call a diplomatic trap.
A diplomatic trap.
Yes. Because they were attending an international peace exercise, the ship is locked in a strict diplomatic configuration.
What does a diplomatic configuration practically mean, though? Why can't they just turn their weapons back on now that they know there's a war?
Being in a diplomatic configuration isn't just a state of mind, it's a physical, mechanical reality. It's like showing up to a tense negotiation and proving you're peaceful by taking the firing pins out of all your team's weapons and leaving your extra ammo at home.
Wow.
Their heavy weapons are literally offline. They have no anti-ship missiles armed,
Yeah.
no operational torpedoes ready in the tubes, and no surface-to-air missile systems online.
That's terrifying.
Even their helicopter, which would be their absolute best asset for hunting submarines, was left behind for this goodwill voyage.
Right.
To rearm all of these systems takes time, secure facilities, and resources they suddenly don't have in the middle of the ocean. They are an unarmed, crippled vessel creeping through a war zone.
And here's where the narrative gets incredibly tense. The text abruptly shifts our perspective deep underwater. We leave the sweating, panicked bridge of the Dena, and we are suddenly inside the USS Charlotte, a U.S. Navy submarine deployed from Pearl Harbor, currently prowling the dark waters south of Sri Lanka.
The contrast between the two ships is masterful.
Yeah.
Aboard the Dena, there is anxiety and a creeping sense of dread. But inside the control room of the USS Charlotte, the atmosphere is chillingly calm.
Cold.
Exactly. The crew isn't angry. They aren't caught up in the geopolitical fervor of the news. They are strictly, quietly professional. The lighting is red, the voices are hushed, and everything is driven by data.
It's all about the math and the mechanics of the kill for them. And you mentioned earlier that the Dena's engine trouble made them vulnerable. This is where that really comes back to bite them.
Dena's slow speed seals their fate. This submarine captain notes that the Iranian frigate is moving at a mere 6 or 7 knots in a straight, predictable line.
Right.
A fast maneuvering ship makes calculating a torpedo trajectory incredibly difficult. But a slow, steady target gives the sub's fire control computers exactly what they need. The text specifies this is the perfect scenario for a wire-guided Mark 48 torpedo.
How does a wire-guided torpedo actually work? I always pictured them just firing it and hoping it hits.
It's much more sophisticated than that. When a wire-guided torpedo is launched, it literally trails a thin spool of wire behind it, connecting it back to the submarine.
Real.
Yes, this allows the crew on the sub to use their much larger, far superior sonar computers to manually guide the weapon through the water. They can steer it left, right, up, or down, right up until the final seconds before impact.
That's incredible.
The weapon is smart, but the wire makes it deadly accurate.
The description of the strike in the text is so methodical. The submarine captain raises the periscope. He sees the dark silhouette of the Dena on the surface, its navigation lights glimmering faintly.
Yeah.
He gives the order. A fire control technician presses a switch. There's a mechanical thump as the torpedo leaves tube 1. The captain watches through the periscope as the water beneath the Iranian frigate simply erupts. A violent column of spray and flame tears upward into the night sky. And then, without any cheering or celebration, the captain just orders, "Take us down." The submarine quietly descends into the deep, slipping away, leaving this absolute nightmare on the surface.
It really highlights the cold, asymmetric nature of modern submarine warfare. The hunters never even have to look their targets in the eye, and the hunted never see the blow coming.
The final moments aboard the Dena are visceral. The torpedo detonates right beneath the stern. It literally breaks the frigate's keel. It snaps the ship's spine in half. The entire aft section, the engine rooms, the berthing areas, they sink instantly. Anyone back there is gone in a second. Up on the bridge, the ship is tilting violently. Seawater is flooding in. Commander Zari and Lieutenant Rahmani realize instantly that the ship is doomed.
They know it's over.
Right. And instead of scrambling for the life rafts, they stop. They face east toward the faint light of dawn. They bow their heads and they pray to Allah. They go down with their ship.
While that somber moment happens on the bridge, the surviving crew members, the few who are already awake on the upper decks, manage to get a frantic Mayday call-off before the power dies completely.
Yeah.
That broken, static-filled transmission reaches the Sri Lankan Naval Operations Center in Colombo. Sri Lanka is suddenly thrust into the middle of this crisis, and they immediately dispatch a coastal patrol vessel to the coordinates.
When that patrol vessel arrives, the sun is coming up, and the ocean is just covered in this thick, black, toxic fuel oil.
Yeah.
There is no ship left. It's just scattered debris and exhausted, burned men clinging to life rings and a single overloaded life raft. The Sri Lankan sailors lower an inflatable rescue boat into this mess to pull the survivors out.
And this leads to the most emotionally powerful moment in the entire narrative. A Sri Lankan petty officer dives into the oil-slick water to help haul a barely conscious Iranian sailor into the rescue boat.
Yeah.
When the exhausted sailor coughs up seawater and looks up, recognition flashes between them.
It's unbelievable. The Sri Lankan rescuer is Petty Officer Nalin Pereira, and the Iranian survivor he just pulled from the wreckage is Reza Farhadi.
Right.
Just days ago, these two men were standing under the festival lights in Vizag, eating biryani and drinking hot tea. Pereira had promised to show Reza the best food in Colombo. Now, one is literally pulling the other out of the burning wreckage of a brand new global war.
It is a profound collision of the personal and the geopolitical. The festival and the war zone violently intersecting in the bodies of these two young men.
Yeah.
And while they are having this traumatic reunion in the rescue boat, the geopolitical fallout is already hitting the shores of Sri Lanka.
Right, because Sri Lanka now has a massive diplomatic headache. An Iranian warship was just sunk in international waters right off their coast by a presumably American submarine.
Sri Lanka's president, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, is suddenly forced to navigate an absolute minefield. Remember, the Dena didn't travel to the festival alone.
Oh, right.
It had a sister ship, a large fleet replenishment vessel called the Bushir, which was also scheduled to visit Sri Lanka. President Dissanayake has to make a rapid calculation to maintain his country's neutrality while superpowers are trading blows on his doorstep.
What does he do?
Ultimately, he makes the difficult decision to intern the Bushir and its 208 crew members in the port of Trincomalee. He frames it as a humanitarian move to protect the sailors from suffering the same fate as the Dena. but it underscores how quickly a local government must scramble to contain the blast radius of these conflicts.
So, what does this all mean for you listening to this today? Pepler's text forces you to reflect on how shockingly fast the world can turn upside down. You can be standing on a glass skywalk, trading uniform patches, sharing a joke about a VPN with a guy from a country you're supposedly enemies with, and then, a few days later, you are covered in oil, fighting for your life.
It's a sobering thought.
It really is.
Hmm.
This deep dive emphasizes a harsh reality. While nations play chess and governments debate tactics in secure rooms, it is the individual sailors, the young men and women far from home, who bear the immediate, brutal, and physical cost of those decisions.
If we look closely at that cost, there is a haunting detail that reframes this entire narrative, and it's something I want you to think about long after this deep dive ends. Think about the tragic irony of the diplomatic configuration we discussed earlier. To participate in peace, a warship must literally disarm itself, making it completely defenseless if the rules of the world suddenly change while it is isolated at sea. It begs a profound question for you to mull over. Whether in global geopolitics or in our own personal lives, how do we ever safely balance the vulnerability required to build trust with the armor required to survive?